Let's take a look at this use callback extra credit. So I'm not a huge fan of passing the dependencies here for two reasons. One, we don't get the warning from ESLint that we want to because ESLint can't statically analyze this. And two, we don't get an ESLint warning here either. So we could very easily just mess ourselves up really bad by removing that. We don't get any ESLint warning, and boom, you'll notice no dice. We're not in a good situation. So I want to fix this, and the way that we're going to do that is by forcing the Pokemon info component to be the one to do this dependency checking instead. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, let's listen to Dan when he's telling us that these dependencies are wrong, and let's let Dan fix that for us. Okay, so now the async callback is going to be the thing that we have dependencies on. We're going to get rid of these dependencies. So here's the problem though that we talked about earlier. This function is going to be redefined on every render, and so that means that every render, this use async is going to call this function even if the Pokemon name did not change, and that could absolutely be a problem. So the next thing that we're going to do is we need to figure out a way to make this function only change when the Pokemon name changes. And that is exactly what use callback does. So here I'm going to make a async callback here with React use callback. And we're going to take this callback and put it right in there. And then pass async callback right here. And we're getting a warning here, and that's telling us, hey, we have an exhaustive depths violation here. So what is that? Use callback will return a memoized version of the callback, Oh, there it is. It does nothing when called with only one argument. Did you forget to pass an array of dependencies? Yes, we did. Yes, we did indeed. So we pass our array of dependencies here, very similar to use effect. And let's just let Dan fill that in for us. Thank you, Dan. Pokemon name. There we go. So now React is going to make sure that this callback that we get and assign to async callback will be the same one that we've created in the first place until the Pokemon name changes. Then React will give us the new one that we created with that new Pokemon name in its closure. So we get a stable, consistent async callback here, which we can pass to use async, and we no longer need to pass this dependency list. This is nice because if we miss out on one of our dependencies, we can have that automatically warn and fix that for us and avoid the bugs that would be associated with missing those dependencies. And we get control over how the memoization of our callback works. Now, one thing that you'll notice, and people ask me this all the time when I show them this, is they say, well, now hold on a second, Ken. There's a line in the documentation that says you should not rely on the memoization here as a semantic guarantee of the API because React doesn't actually guarantee that this will be stable even when there's no change to the dependencies. And that is true. That doesn't actually happen currently, but it may happen one day. So the docs are really just kind of leaving themselves open to that opportunity. And the reason that they want to do that is so that they can free up some memory so that this function can get garbage collected if this component isn't on screen. And in that case, if it does end up changing and the user scrolls off and then they come back and you end up redefining this function and calling this use async hook, then that's actually fine. It really isn't a problem that we call use async right here because we're not actually doing anything destructive here anyway. So it is really just an optimization to avoid calling things too many times, and this works out okay for us. Now, I'm still not a huge fan of this API, and we can improve it further, which we're going to do in the next extra credit, but I'm going to go ahead and take you through this review really quick. So what we did here is we initially had a third argument here for dependencies. We passed that as an argument to our useEffect call, and we had to disable ESLint. In doing so, we wanted to get rid of that, so instead, we got rid of it, and we used the async callback as our dependency here. So whenever the async callback changes, then our useEffect knows that, oh, the state of the world has fallen out of sync with the state of my app. So let's go ahead and call that use callback again. And then we ensure that this async callback only changes when we want it to be called by using use callback and providing the Pokemon name as the dependencies for this callback. And then we pass that async callback to use async. And now if we save this, we can verify that indeed it does still work.